Yeah, let us read again those few lines which we did last time and try to continue further. We had a description of Savitri arriving at the hermitage where she had met Satyavan for the first time a few weeks earlier. The poet introduces the description in a very significant manner, in a very loaded manner, full of occult and spiritual connotations. He says, the past receded and the future neared. At once, we had here not only the continuation of the storyline that Savitri is leaving back her palace, her Madra, her Alakananda, her parents, and all those beautiful things there, her intimate friends, her inmates, she is leaving them behind. And in that sense, the past receded. And the future neared. The future, of course, would mean living now with Satyavan in the hermitages and also getting ready to meet the eventuality made known to her by Narad that 1 year after the marriage, Satyavan will die. This is a destined death, and Savitri has to prepare herself to meet that death and conquer death. So when he says the future neared, it also connotes immediately the sense of the conquest of death which is going to happen in this hermitage, in this particular place. Past receded. It is not only the past 15-20 years of Savitri staying in Madra, maybe 25 years, because she has become a fully grown girl to get married. So maybe between 20 and 25. So it is not that past which is receding, but the past of the entire earth, the accumulated karmas, the occult difficulties which are being faced in the process of evolution, and of the possibilities that have to open out for the future. It is that past now which is staying back. Its function is over, its job is done. And the future or the coming or the everlasting day is what is indicated that is nearing soon. So the line has a double arthandra, double meaning, double sense. It is very rich in both the story aspect and the occult spiritual aspects connected with Savitri's work. The past receded and the future near. Far now lay behind Madra's spacious halls. Well, he is now narrating it in the form of a storyline, although the suggestions are at a different level also simultaneously. Far now behind lay Madra's spacious halls, the white carved pillars, the cool dim alcoves, the tinged mosaic of the crystal floors, the towered pavilions, the wind-rippled pools, and gardens humming with the murmur of bees, forgotten soon, or a pale memory. The fountain splash in the white stone-bound pool, the thoughtful noontides brooding solemn trance, The colonized dream grey in the quiet eve, the slow moonrise gliding in front of night. So here we have again a double description of location and of moment. Location in terms of space, of moment in terms of time. In space, Madra, the surrounding area, the geographical surroundings of the place, in the local sense, in the sense of the space. And in sense of time, we have noontide, eve and night. Why night? Because the future, the new dawn, is soon going to arrive on the horizon in space and time. So the meaning is already incorporated in this sort of a geographical, temporal description by the poet himself. That is the power, that is the magic, that is charm of the mystic poetry. That in just few lines he can cover vast tracts of space and time, of ages and of realms, one after the other. That is the beauty of the mystic poetry. And this is one of the most unique examples in Savitri, where all these things are depicted immediately in one single sentence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines. You see, everything is covered in the 11 lines which is stated. The past is receded and the future neared. Now, why did they say past receded and the future neared? Again, it is connected with the work of Savitri. Savitri's birth itself is a unique birth, is a purposeful birth. It is the birth in response to the powerful invocation of Ashwapati to the Divine Mother herself. And in response to that prayer of Ashwapati, she takes a mortal birth. And therefore, the poet tells us that once more that will put an earthly shape. Once more that will put on an earthly shape. Will, the supreme will, it has taken the birth again in an earthly shape. The Supreme Himself, the Divine Mother herself has come here again, once more. This has been happening through the ages, through the yugas, through cycles of time. She has been coming again and again. But now, in this particular life, this will has taken a decisive step. Something is definitely going to happen. The past is receded, in the future near. Just assurance of that will. Once more that will put on an earthly shape. What is she going to do? She has taken the birth, of course. At once she seemed to found a mightier race. At once she seemed to found a mightier race. Savitri is born, and even as a child, there is the assurance in her work, in her activities, in her movements, that she is going to found a mightier race here. The future is approaching. That mightier race has to arrive at once. She seemed to found a mightier race. Again, the deep mystic attempt began. This attempt of Savitri's coming here again and again is for a certain decisive action. But now something else has happened here. Something very definite, something very concrete is going to happen here. Again, the mystic deep attempt began. Now this attempt is going to bear fruit. He is going to achieve what for it has come here. It has going to have its phalashruti, its reward, the divine reward. The boon of the Supreme is going to fructify here. At once, the deep mystic attempt began. At once, she seemed found a mightier race. The past receded and the future neared. So that is the possibility of the future which is suggested here in a very, very powerful manner. Although a spatio-temporal picture is what is given to us here. At once she seemed to found a mightier race. In fact, even in her, what the poet calls, childish moments, Savitri as a babe, even as a very young girl, there was a nearness of light. There was something which was divine in her laughter, in her movement, in her joy, in her play, in her association with her friends, with her objects, with her toys, whatever was there around. Although they seemed childish in the human sense, but to the mystic eye, one could see, the mystic eye could immediately see that there is a divine light all around her, doing all these things. That is what Savitri is here now. And therefore the poet says here, left far behind were now the faces known. Left far behind were now the faces known, the happy silken babble on laughter's lips, and a close clinging clasp of intimate hands, and adorations alight in cherished eyes, offered to the one sovereign of their life. All her inmates, her friends, her associates in the palace, they worshipped her because there was light around her. They could feel something in her, and therefore they offered themselves to Savitri. They became her glorious companions in that game, in that play, in that moment, in that association. Adorations lied in cherished eyes. Hers were the cherished eyes. And her friends, her peer, her compatriots, they adored her. They found something very charming in her eyes. The light was there around, even in her childish moments. And they immediately felt something very unusual and got immediately attracted by that. The happy silken babble on laughter's lips. Laughter itself is now personified here. Laughter is standing as a person, and on his lips, what do he have? Babble. The way in which a child utters words. Something which looks to us meaningless, prattle of not much use, something which has not any meaning, all the same to be full of happiness, silken, soft, vivid also, very desirable also. It is in that moment that Savitri is being worshipped by our friends and compatriots. Babble is something which is uttered, which looks very meaningless. The way the child speaks something, nobody understands what it is trying to say, perhaps except its mother. She knows what it is speaking. But her friends, they were so intimate to her, so close to her, that they could grasp what she is trying to say, even in her babble, in her meaningless chatter there. The happy, silken babble on laughter's lips. Now here, again, some of the adjectives are purposeful. Happy, silken. The babble is of that kind on the lips of laughter. Why the poet is saying? Because that is the past. In Madura, as a child, she was happy, joyous, no care, nothing. Everybody was at her service. At her word, people would come and give her whatever she wanted, she demanded, she cried for. It was easily available to her. Now that happiness may not be there anymore to Savitri in the future. She has accepted a harsh life in the hermitage of staying in a forest where she will have to do household work, sweep the floor, lit the kitchen fire, prepare the food, pull the water from the well. This is what Savitri has to do now in the future. So the happiness is now left behind. That belongs to the past. The future, the immediate future for Savitri is to accept the life of the hermitage, the ascetic's life. In fact, in the Mahabharata story, when Savitri begins staying in the hermitage after marriage, after her parents had left the place, she takes off her royal dress, her ornaments, and puts on the sannyasi's clothes, bare, minimum, lives a very harsh life. She speaks very few words. She cannot travel, cannot talk freely with anybody around here, because she has accepted now the life of a tapaswini, of an ascetic, where she has to do yoga and prepare herself to meet the challenge of death. She is engaged immediately in that task. So that happy silken babble is now over, and the immediate future which is being seen is a harsh life, the tough life of the hermitage, where she has no servants there. Her husband will get up early in the morning, pick up his instruments, go to the forest to cut woods, to collect fruit, to get vegetables, bring home. So that is the kind of life she will have to live immediately after that. In the house, she will have to do all the household work herself. She will have to look after her aged parents-in-law, her blind father-in-law, her old mother-in-law. Take due care of them. The happy silken babble on laughter's lips and the close clinging clasp of intimate hands, those hands are not there now. And adoration's light in cherished eyes, offered the one sovereign of their life. So that is gone now, that belongs to the past. And what do we have now here? We are here. Nature's primeval loneliness was here. bare ascetic life, mountains and rivers, beasts and animals, birds. It is in that surrounding she has to live here. Nature's primeval, the very beginning of nature's life, full of these activities. Here only was the voice of bird and beast. That silken babble is not there. Her friends chatting with her, that is not there. Here only was the voice of bird and beast. The ascetic's exile in the dim-souled, used, inhuman forest, far from cheerful sound of man's blithe converse and his crowded days. The city life, the urban life, the busy life of the palace, they were no more here. What we are here? The ascetic's exile in the dim-souled, used, inhuman forest. It is in that surrounding, in that condition, Savitri has to live at the moment here. Now, this is a picture which appears on a number of occasions in Savitri itself. The place where Savitri first met Satyavan, the meeting place is what is described here. In the same way, we can see some of these things quickly, a few of these descriptions. Why I am reading this thing is to also show the kind of a consistency which is there in the poem. At different places he is describing things, but there is a unity, there is a coherence. It is the same thing which he is describing, opposed in different manner. But it is not that on page 15 he is describing this place in one manner, and in the book of yoga he is describing in another manner, and in the meeting place he is describing in the third manner. It is not that. It is the same place. Even when she is meeting death, that scene of the forest, it is the same scene which is present in different places in Savitri. The same vividness, the same power of precision, and with more or less the same details, but each time the description adding something new, something charming, something beautiful, something rich to the whole place. So that is the beauty of Savitri. There is a unity of theme. Although the description is, so to say, repetitive, it is not really repetitive. It is enriching every time. Now, for instance, we have here, right in the beginning, when the poet is describing the issue, maybe your page 12 or 14, something there, perhaps. See how the poet has remembered everything, and the details are exactly the same. On page 15, the issue, alone amid the many faces loved. See, again the same description what we have seen earlier. Alone amid the many faces loved, aware among unknowing happy hearts, her armored spirit kept watch upon the hours, listening for a foreseen tremendous step, listening for a foreseen tremendous step, foreseen. Again, that unity of theme is there. In the close beauty of the inhuman voice. This is what we had here. Inhuman forest. See the exactness of the description. Inhuman forest, yes, in the inhuman voice, here we got. And it continues. A combatant in silent, dreadful lists, the world unknowing, for the world she stood. No helper had she, save the strength within. There was no witness of terrestrial eyes, the gods above, and nature's soul below were the spectators of that mighty strife. What Savitri is going to meet. That is the place where Satyabhama is going to die. This place where Savitri is going to live after the marriage. Around her were the austere sky-pointing hills, tall rising range forest trees. Around her were the austere sky-pointing hills and the green, murmurous, broad, deep-thoughted woods muttered incessantly their muffled spell. A dense, magnificent, colored, self-wrapped life. A dense, magnificent, colored, self-wrapped life. See the richness of the life. Dense, magnificent, colored, self-wrapped. Life has 4 adjectives. This is a very rare incident that a noun is carrying 4 adjectives before it. You see. Dense, of course, magnificent, the thick forest, very beautiful, magnificent, imposing, majestic. Also colored, something green, something brown, something emerald, different colors are there. Self-wrapped, they have wrapped themselves, covered themselves up. Life, draped the leaves vivid, emerald, monotone, and set with chequers and beams, and bright flowers. They made her destiny's secluded scene. That is the scene where Savitri is going to stay also. Secluded scene in that forest, in that hermitage, isolated from the life outside, the urban life, the busy life of man. Away from that. There has she grown to the stature of a spirit. It is here, in this place, she had grown to the stature of a spirit. She is going to do her yoga here and rise to the full power of her spirit to meet the challenge of death. There has she grown to the stature of her spirit. The genius of titanic silences sleeping her soul in its wide loneliness had shown to her herself's bare reality and mated her with her environment. Its solitude greatened her human hours. With a background of the eternal and unique. See again how meaningful this description is compared with happy silken Babel is over. Now she is in the company of this forest and trees and bird and beast, and she is going to rise to the full stature of a spirit. A force, a spare, direct necessity, reduce the heavy framework of man's days and his overburdening mass of outward needs to a first thin strip of simple animal wants, whatever is required, the minimum, that is what is given to her. To a first thin strip of simple animal wants and a mighty wideness of the primitive earth, the primeval loneliness, the primitive earth, this is what we have here. And a brooding multitude of patient trees. We had the same thing here earlier, brooding multitude of patient trees and the musing sapphire leisure of the sky and the solemn weight of the slowly passing months. 12 months are given to her and they are now passing slowly here. And the solemn weight of the slowly passing months had left in her deep room for thought and God. For thought and God. She is going to do her yoga here. The poet is already suggesting right in the beginning what is going to happen in this forest here. There was her drama's radiant prologue, live. This is the summary of the whole scene here. And that is what we have in the present passage also. nature's primal loneliness. Nature's primal loneliness was here. Here only was the voice of bird and beast, the ascetic's exile and the dim-souled huge inhuman forest, far from cheerful sound of man's blithe converse and his crowded days. Now, see the touch of the poet as an artist, how small little details make a whole difference in the quality of poetry. Here only was the voice of bird and beast. The poet is suggesting only two kinds, bird and beast. Bird, he doesn't say birds and beasts. Bird and beast is a more powerful way of telling about all those things than birds and beasts. It becomes dilute, very weak, very small, feeble. But the moment he says bird and beast, suddenly the whole species of flying creature, of animals moving around, they get covered in that singular noun, bird and beast. So that is the poetic art. That is only a master can do. An ordinary poet would have said birds and beasts. See? But the master says bird and beast. Poetically again this line, here only was a voice of bird and beast. We can practically say that the first quote, here only, here only, here oh. There is a stress on here and oh. That is corresponding. Only was. Pyrrhic, short. The voice, the bird and beast, ends. Short, long. So the movement of the poetry is also very appropriate to the description. Here only was the voice of bird and beast. You can see the rhythm, how it moves. The power of poetry comes out fully in the metrical connotation also. That is the creation of a master poet, of a master artist also. So we have here the combination of space and time, or the present, or the past and the future, or the poetic art choosing to bring out something of a different type of poetry, which is very rare, which is possible only for one who lives in the true, authentic, real world of poetry. Somewhere high up, the overmind influence of that world is present in the expression. And that is very clear even from the simple phrases. Nature's primeval loneliness was here, here only for the voice of bird and beast, the ascetic exile and the dim-souled huge inhuman forest, far from cheerful sound of man's blithe converse and his crowded day. Now, apart from the naturalness of the lines stopping at the end, we also have the effect of lines overflowing. The ascetic's exile, in the dim-souled, huge inhuman. The line is overflowing. The line does not stop with huge. It has a tendency to run on to the next line. Huge inhuman forest, far from cheerful sound of man's blithe. Again the line is running on. Far from cheerful sound of man's blithe converse. So the effect of overflowing lines, at the same time the effect of end-stop lines is poetically trapped, is caught, seized to bring out something very unusual, very powerful, very expressive also. That is the charm of Savitri. Last time we were seeing the description of the surroundings where the hermitages were located and where the convoy is arriving. The convoy carrying Savitri to her future place. Let us read a few lines first before we can look into some of those details. Nature's primeval loneliness was here. Here only was the voice of bird and beast. The ascetics exiled in the dim souled huge inhuman forest, far from the cheerful sound of man's blithe converse and his crowded days. In a broad eve, with one red eye of cloud, through a narrow opening, a green flowered cleft, out of the stair of sky and soil, they came into a mighty home of emerald dusk. There, onward led by a faint brooding path, which toiled through the shadow of enormous trunks and under arches mirrors of sunshine, they saw low thatched roofs of a hermitage huddled beneath a patch of azure hue. In a sunlit clearing, the seemed the outbreak of a glad smile in the forest's monstrous heart, a rude refuge of the thought and will of man, watched by the crowding giants of the wood. And it goes on. Now basically, in a deeper sense, the question that arises in one's mind is, why the story is related with the loneliness of the forest, away from civilization, away from towns and cities, from bazaars and marketplaces, in the deep forest, where not even one human step is seen or observed, but are only a group of thatches where live the sages and seers and rishis and their disciples. Why this event of Satyavan's death should be in this remote place? Why could it not be in a palace, in the midst of human activity, in the midst of life itself? Certainly, there is a meaning that some deeper occult truth is inlaid in that, and therefore we have here a very elaborate description of the loneliness of the forest. In human forest, far from cheerful sound, no human sound is there, no voices of children are there, no schools, colleges are there, no educational institutions are there, no sports grounds are there. In human forest, far from cheerful sound of man's blithe converse and his crowded days, away from man's crowded days, this is what is going to happen. The question which would naturally arise in our mind is why it is necessary that the death should occur here, and why Savitri should come to this place, leaving her majesty, her royalty, her palace, with all the glorious things which we have seen earlier. Why? Well, one immediate answer which we can give, we shall see that thing in more detail, but one immediate answer which we can give is, it is necessary that there is no human interference of any kind in the occurred event which is going to take place. Only Savitri, Satyavan and gods above, they are going to be mighty witness of the encounter that will occur between her and Yama, death. So, the description of this forest, this elaborate description of the forest, of the scene, is also, in that sense, purposeful. It is not that the poet is luxuriating in poetry. It is not for the sake of poetry alone, but it is going to tell you something more, something deeper, some other associations are present with it, and therefore he is elaborating these things in a great way, in a very detailed manner. Nature's primeval loneliness, no human interference at all, no mental disturbance, no interference of any kind from man's longings and thoughts and wishes and happiness is going to happen. As a matter of fact, even in this forest, death is going to take place not in the hermitage where Satyavan and Savitri were staying with Satyavan's parents. Not even there, not even that human touch, that human element should be present there. Therefore, they go deep into the forest, and under the tree, the banyan tree, the mighty king tree, under that tree, the death occurs. So, all these are interrelated descriptions. They are with a certain purpose. They carry the occurred atmosphere, occurred suggestions, occurred meaning. These are packed in the episode connected with this death. The ascetic's exile in the dense road, huge inhuman forest, far from cheerful sound of man's blithe converse and his crowded days. And then the poet moves on. In a broad eve, he has come up to the entrance point of the hermitages, Parnakutis, where you had a number of rishis living, where in one of the Parnakutis, in one of the thatches, Dumasena, his wife Shaibya, and their son Satyavan are also living. So the whole convoy is now arriving at the entrance point of that hermitage. In a broad eve with one red eye of cloud, so it is to the evening that they are coming to the hermitage, and the cloud in the sky is red because of the sunlight falling from behind. In a broad eve with one red eye of cloud, through a narrow opening of the trees and forest, through a narrow opening, a green flowered cleft out of the scare of sky and soil, they came into a mighty home of emerald dusk. The green evening or the forest. It is toward the evening that the convoy is arriving at the hermitage. Now, in this long description of about 100 lines, Savitri is coming to the hermitage. Her passage through the Aryavarta from place to place is described in great detail, but we have no idea yet that is it Savitri alone who is coming to the forest, or is the entire royal family with the ministers, with the army, that they are coming to the forest. That indication is not given yet. Now it is for the first time here we have been told remotely, suggestively, out of the sphere of sky and soil, they came. Who are these they? And that has been left undefined in Sri Bandhu Savitri. They came, he has not defined in his Savitri. Obviously, one obvious suggestion, idea, notion could be that it is a royal convoy who is accompanying Savitri. But that royal convoy would still not mean that her parents are also present. It could be some high minister who is carrying Savitri to her destined place. She had gone from place to place in search of a life partner, accompanied by a royal convoy. Some high minister was there, and it is he who was taking Savitri to different palaces, to different kingdoms, and moving on. So is it that convoy again which is bringing back Savitri to the hermitage? Now that has been left undefined in this Savitri. But we have a very explicit description of it in the Mahabharata Savitri. What happens exactly is described in sufficient detail in the Mahabharata Savitri. But before we come to that, let us see how the poetic art becomes so beautiful, so charming, so appealing to the readers of Savitri. What great inspiration is there behind these simple lines. In a broad eve with one red eye of cloud, this is one of the rarest kind of a description in Savitri. Broad eve with one red eye of cloud, looking into all these things, future, what is going to happen and all that. Now, this is a description in the poetic language, in the language of a literary critic, belonging to what is called the Keatsian detail. John Keats, the romantic poet, Keats, has such wonderful details in his poetry. And this is one of the most telling passages in Savitri, where we have a Keatsian element present in this description. And a broad eve with one red eye of cloud is absolutely Keatsian, belonging to the quality of the poetry of Keats. And Sri Bandhu snatched it, got it. How? Because it is kind of flowing into his veins, into his poetic structure. into his poetic soul, and it comes out very naturally at appropriate points of time, the moment there is an opening for that inspiration. It happens. And a broad eve with one red eye of cloud. This is what I have been saying in the Christian description. Now, let us see a couple of examples connected with the minuteness with which Keats describes some of these things in his poetry. And then we can really appreciate how much Rabindranath has assimilated the English poetry and recreated his own poetry in that way. Here are a couple of lines from Keats. See, one line is something like this: Vesper, that is Venus, that is the evening star. He is describing about Vesper, the evening star, Venus. Very beautiful star, Venus, of course, the goddess of beauty. Amorous glow warm the sky. He sees in the evening star. And the description is also about the evening, what she will be describing. Red eye in cloud. Here, instead of red cloud, we have got Vesper in Keats. And how does that star, that planet rather, scientifically speaking, it looks like a glowworm in the sky. Now, these are minute details with which Keats develops his poetry. His inspiration is full of such minute details. After all, what is a star in the sky, evening star, Venus? It is a glowworm in the sky. Now, see, the magic again is something which is very attractive in the sense that when he is talking of Vesper, Venus, the evening star, Venus, the goddess of beauty herself, and he is connecting that thing with glowworm. Obviously, again in the evening, night, and Savitri's description is also about the evening, red eye in the evening. Glowworm of the sky. Now, biologically, it is the female glowworm which glows in the night, and not the male. You see, not the male. Venus, Vesper, they are all related to the female. So the appropriateness of the simile is biologically also perfect. There is no discordance there anywhere, you see. Amorous glowworm of the sky, that is how it is described. So the details are very minutely caught and represented in his poetry in that manner, and that is exactly what we have in Savitri also. In a broad eve with one red eye of cloud, every detail is purposeful, meaningful, is correlative also, you see, in a sense. Then there is another passage from Keats. Let me read that thing also. A voice flowed on. He is personifying voice. Voice flowed on like timorous brook. Timorous brook. In the night, it is evening, in the forest, a lonely, frightful brook is flowing on. A voice flowed on. How? Like timorous brook that, lingering along a paved coast, doth fear to meet the ocean. The brook is moving along the paved coast towards the sea, but it is kind of afraid. It is timid. And that is how the voice which he is describing of his loss coming here. So in other words, the comparison is so elaborate, so minute, so detailed, and so delicate also, you see. That's the beauty of the whole description of poetry. Voice flowed on like timorous brook that lingering along a paved coast doth fear to meet the sea. Now this is the kind of a thing which you see in Savitri. I just here you have this one example. We can see a couple of more examples also in Savitri of that kind, you see. Then there is another one. One trance waking into another, she began to sing. See, whosoever is singing, how she is singing? As if one trance is waking into another trance. As if one dream is waking into another dream. It is that kind of a detail which is very rare, which is very precious also. Waking from a dream into another dream. It is in that manner somebody is singing. So the aptness, the simile or the details is very appealing. And it is not just poetry for the sake of poetry. It has connotations of different kinds also. One trance waking to another, she began to sing. Morning waters at the priest-like task of some ablution. In one place it is morning waters, in another version it is moving waters in kids. Moving waters in their priest-like task. The waters are moving and what are they doing? Priest-like, they are offering ablution. So again, the delicateness of the simile is very beautiful here. The water is moving out as if a priest is offering oblations. Then of course we have a very anguished, very intense description. What? Mortality weighs heavily on me like unwilling sleep. Mortality is weighing heavily on me like unwilling sleep. Now these are again very delicate, very elaborate description. What is he describing? Mortality. Like unwilling sleep. I don't want it, but it is there. Well, people say that this could be also a kind of advanced knowledge that Keats was going to die pretty soon. It may be, it may not be. That doesn't concern us. But the line by itself, mortality weighs heavily on me like unwilling sleep, is so beautiful, so romantic, so touching, so universal. Those who are sensitive, those who are perceptive to things, they feel that it is not Keats on whom that mortality is weighing. It is on all of us that mortality is weighing. He has found a universal utterance in that particular phrase. And how? Like unwilling sleep. I don't want the sleep, but it is still pressing me on the sleep. So these are the Christian deities. This is what I was trying to say. Now, well, let us take the last example. He is describing in the forest oak trees. And how do they look? Oak trees are senators of mighty woods. Those beautiful forests, thick forest. They are the senators of mighty woods. Now, this could be very appropriately transferred to the description what we have in Savitri, surrounding the hermitages where Satyavan is living and the rishis are living, in human forest, far from cheerful sound. But that forest is guarded by whom? By the senators of mighty woods. Those forests are guarded by the senators of mighty woods. That's the kind of relationship we have in both the places, you see. Now, we could see, apart from this particular description, which is in front of us here in Savitri, in a broad eve with one red eye of cloud, through a narrow opening, a green flower cleft, out of the stair of sky and soil they came into a mighty home of emerald dusk. So this is one Christian description. Maybe we can have some more examples from Savitri about the Christian descriptions. It is good to enjoy this poetry, and therefore I would like to do that kind of a thing, you see. Because the poetry will move on, and of course the yoga also will move on, you see, but this is also a part of the yoga, you see. Now, this is the scene when Savitri and Satyavan are going to meet for the first time in the forest. And the scene is very, very beautifully, very delicately described by the poet. That a spiritual poet can also be so romantic is one of the most wonderful things that can happen in Shaivandu's spirituality, which is so rich in every respect, and its true sense of the romantic nature, the joy of the psychic emerging and flooding every aspect of your life. That is what romantic means. At first, her glance that took life's million shapes, she is looking everywhere. She is going, her chariot is going from place to place, she is looking everywhere in the forest. At first, a glance that took life's million shapes, impartially to people, his treasure house, along with sky and flower and hill and star. See, again he is using singulars. Along with sky and flower and hill and star, as we have seen last time also, hill and star, dwelt Radha on the bright, harmonious scene where she is going to meet Satyavan. That is, of course, going to be a harmonious scene, obviously. And then it saw the green gold of the slumberous sward, the grasses quivering with slow winds that trade, the branches haunted, but the wild birds that call. And then he says further down, Savitri is moving, she is kind of casually looking all around here, and then she says, so might she have passed on chance ignorant roads. By chance she happened to get roads, ignorant road, what is going to happen, she has no idea. So might she have passed on chance ignorant roads, missing the goal of heaven, losing life's aim. Satyavan is there, but okay, she has been seeing so many people all around while she is going from place to place, and maybe this is another youth, it's okay, so what? That kind of thing. She might have passed on. But they got touched in time, her conscious soul. although it is a chance, there is behind it the God touch. But the God touched in time her conscious soul. Her vision settled, caught, and all was changed. And then her mind at first dwelt in ideal dreams, those intimate transmitter of earth's signs that make known things a hint of unseen spheres, and saw in him the genius of the spot, a simple figure standing mid earth's scenes, a king of light outlined in delicate air. Yet this was but a moment's reverie, for suddenly her heart looked out at him. The passionate seeing used thought cannot match, and knew one nearer than his own close thing. All in a moment to surprise and seize, all in inconscient ecstasy, lay wrapped or under imagination's colored lids, held up a large mirror air of dream, broke forth in flame to recreate the world, and in that flame to new things she was born. Now, this is not only Kirsian, it is super Kirsian. This passage is elaborate in detail in every respect, is of course Kirsian, but it is something which even kids cannot achieve. It is super Kirsian. All in a moment was surprised and seized, all in inconscient ecstasy, lay wrapped or under imagination's colored lids, head up in a large mirror air of dream, broke forth in flame to recreate the world, and in that flame to new things she was born. Well, that is how we have the romantic element, which is far beyond Kalidas and Keats, which is spiritually psychic, at the same time psychically spiritual, present in Savitri. It is not aesthetic romanticism, it is spiritually psychic and simultaneously psychically spiritual. That is what we have in this small little passage, which a non-yogi cannot even imagine. However, a good poet maybe he cannot get that kind of an inspiration. All in a moment was surprised and seized, all in constant ecstasy lay wrapped or under imagination's colored lids, held up in a large mirror air of dream, broke forth in flame to recreate the world, and in that flame to new things she was born. That is the new birth of Savitri. She has discovered love suddenly because the God touched in time and a new birth had taken place. And then further on he says, and alchemy worked, the transmutation came, the mission phase had wrought the master's spell. And then further down, whose trembling fast, Savitri was going swiftly in a chariot from place to place, whose trembling fast, wheels largely tumbling ceased. The chariot stopped suddenly, arrested like a wind. The chariot stood like an arrested wind. Now this is a description again. The chariot stood like an arrested wind. Arrested wind is typically Keatsian. The phrase is not Keats, but the quality of poetry is Keatsian. The chariot stood like an arrested wind. Okay, let us see one last example. There are so many, but I have just picked up at random a couple of them. Yeah, Savitri is answering back to Yama, and then we have got this description here. She spoke, the boundless members of the god, as if by secret ecstasy assailed, shuddered in silence as obscurely stirred, oceans, dim face, delivered to the moon. The ocean is giving to the moon. So he is describing like a field here. As if a secret ecstasy assailed, suddenly shuddered in silence as obscurely stirred, ocean dim face delivered to the moon. Again, these elaborate details are Keatsian. Then lifted up by sudden wind, around her in that vague and glimmering world, then lifted up as by sudden wind, around her in that vague and glimmering world, the twilight trembled like a bursting wave. The twilight through which they were moving, Savitri and Yama, death. The spirit of Satyavan, behind him is death, behind him is Savitri. That is how the procession is moving. Between the spirit of Satyavan and Savitri is standing death. And it is that who is standing between them has to disappear. Then only they can come together. And therefore, as the procession is moving on, what happens? Then lifted up by sudden wind around her in that vague and glimmering world, the twilight trembled like a bursting wave. The moment Savitri is uttering that kind of truth in reply to death, even the twilight is trembling like a veil and which has been lifted up by the wind. Then lifted up as by a sudden wind around her in that vague and glimmering world, as the twilight trembled like a bursting veil. Thus, with armed speech, the great opponents strove. That is how it went on, you see. So again, you see, in the midst of a dialogue with death, the poet is so, what shall I say, ecstatic about the descriptions. So joyous, so happy to give all these little fine details. There is absolutely no gloom, no touch of sorrow. He is watching the whole thing with a beautiful, luminous Sakshi Purusha's consciousness, witness Purusha, standing behind and seeing the whole thing. And therefore, in that detached consciousness, he can describe all the details in their minute perfection, in every detail. The twilight trembled like a bursting wave. That is what happens the moment Savitri is giving an answer to Yama, you see, and things are changed.